Hi, Roger. Thank you so much for joining us for our crafty beer. This is early evening drink, so that we can discover a little bit more about um, how you've been getting on, your ways of thinking, and the journey that we're currently having, and your perspectives on it. But most importantly, what is your tipple? I mean, this is really, really important.
Today, I will be mostly drinking Yes,
Oh,
and this is a gluten-free IPA,
right.
0.5 alcohol. So I can have as many as I possibly can. And the great thing about this is that I have. No, honestly, our recycling has been bin has just been overflowing because I'm here with my wife and three grown-up children. So we've been really piling through the beers. Yeah.
So what I was going to say, everyone's looking forward to when the pubs are reopening because we're all going to drink a lot less.
Yes, exactly. For the health of the nation, get those pubs open, definitely.
So this is my there's this punk IPA, alcohol free. It's a brilliant drink. I suppose we ought to stress that we don't drink alcohol free all the time, but because we are responsible human beings and
Yes,
we are
exactly.
working very long days,
Yeah.
we shall just enjoy this together. I've just poured half of it on the table.
Very, very, very good. Well, my eldest daughter is working for Brewdog up in Edinburgh.
Ah.
She's the Brewdog pub opposite the Usher Hall. It couldn't be more convenient. I mean, after a concert, I can pretty well get there on all fours, straight out the dressing room door, over the road, and she's there. So she knows the range of beers they do really well.
Fabulous, brilliant. So, well, one thing that's very curious to me through this, cheers to you, Roddy, is you've been incredibly generous with your time and our AC Academy scholars over the last couple of months. And indeed, I think you saw them again last week. And they've all got different types of young voices. Some are just about getting ready to go to university, some are a little bit younger. But before we get on to it, do you want to just tell us a little bit more about your journey when you were that age, at 15, 16, 17, fresh-faced Roddy?
Yeah, when I look back on it in hindsight, I see myself as being unbelievably green. I'm and I say that because a lot of people I meet of that age now have a very clear idea of what they want to do. It may well be, of course, that's why I meet them,
Mm.
because they're either at music colleges or they're on schemes like this. That someone has picked them out, or they have decided this is something I'm interested in and want to do. And in order to do it better, I need to see this person and work with that person and go through that door. So at their age, I had not the first clue what I wanted to do. I became generally aware that being musical and not coming out in a rash when I met younger children, that I might be a music teacher.
Yeah.
And that is, in fact, what I did for the first few years. And if it hadn't been through for a particularly one particular conversation on Wimbledon Common when I was about 25, so I would probably be teaching now. So the whole idea of singing, sometimes you do a concert and afterwards it's a sponsors dinner and you're sitting next to someone and they look at you and they say, and so what do you do during the day? What is your real job?
Mm.
And we all laugh. But I was that person. I had no idea that there was a profession, a music profession out there. Nobody had taken me aside and explained it to me. So that's why I say I was so naive and green and fresh-faced. I sang for pleasure at the school choirs and stuff like that. I got on with it, but I had no idea what was out there.
No, I'm fascinated to know, what was that conversation on Wimbledon Common? What sort of
Well,
competition suddenly happens like that can change your whole perspective?
and that's exactly that's how I remember it. Now, my wife and I, we differ on our memory of this, but I know that I'm actually correct. And we'd been married for just a couple of years. We were married quite young, in our early 20s, a couple of years. And apropos of nothing, one weekend we were out on having a walk on Wimbledon Common, and she said to me, "Roddy, what is your ambition in life?" And I don't think I had given that a moment's thought up to that. I don't think the thought had crystallized in my mind of what I actually wanted to do. But I said to her, without much of a pause, I'd quite like to try this singing thing. I'd seen some of my friends who'd been choral scholars with me. I'd seen one or two of them go off into the profession. One of them became a music agent briefly, and then went into Gothic voices and that sort of scene.
Yeah.
And so seeing their example, seeing other people do it, I thought, oh, you can do that. That's a thing, is it? You can, oh, right, okay. And my wife said, if you don't do it now, Obviously I had the stability of a monthly paycheck from my teaching, so that, you know, that was great. But she said, if you don't try and leave that now, you might never have the chance to do it again. And she wasn't really thinking about having a family at that point, but had we then got into the whole having children thing, then at that point, then it would have been very difficult to give all that up and have this precarious freelance lifestyle. So it was at exactly the right moment that she asked it. She says that it was because I was already singing quite a lot at weekends and stuff, doing Messiah's hair creations there and what have you. And she could see that there would become a time soon when I would have to make a decision. But I didn't have the imagination to see that for myself. So I'm eternally grateful to her.
There was no point at which you could say that you were pursuing this vision of a career of this world famous, as it is now, opera singer. And just where a lot of young people, especially in their 20s, when they discover they have this enormous potential within their voice, but take this incredibly courageous step to carry on their training well into their 20s, where effectively you're not earning any money, but you're going through this extraordinarily detailed, concentrated learning period, which takes you onto this platform of this astonishing art form. But that doesn't seem like you had that. It seems to me like you had this want and desire to be a musician and singer.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who, particularly with singing as opposed to instrumental playing or piano, being a piano soloist, for example, piano chamber musician even, singers can develop later and strangely find the different routes. And I always think of Anthony Rolfe Johnson through farming, you know, coming to singing through farming. That's a nice voice you've got there, someone said to him one day. And certainly for me, it was a series of accidents and coincidences. I'd always been singing, but as I say, I never thought of it as a profession. And when I started singing professionally, I was, at that point, as an ex-choral scholar, I was a sight reading creature. So I never really had done anything from memory. I'd never been in an opera or anything like that. My mother loved opera to listen to, but the thought of my being in one was really weird. And it was only going to the Guildhall after a gap of 3, 4, 5 years to follow David Pollard, my singing teacher. He suggested going to the Guildhall so that I could get regular lessons with him. That was no more than that. It was only going there that I was looking at the various courses that the Guildhall offer, and one of them was this 2-year opera course. I like the sound of that because you got to do combat training and dance, and the whole prosthetics of putting on false noses and doing wounds and stuff like that. Yeah. So I thought that sounded terrific. Unbeknownst to me, of course, the part of that course for someone like me coming from a choral scholarship background was to do the conversion into being a stage creature. Yeah. And learning things from memory. So in other words, having more than one rehearsal on it. Yeah. This is complete anathema to me. As soon as you've read it faultlessly, it's done. Tick and bin it. You know, you might see Dyson and Dee once every season, and you read it and then you put it away. It's gone. You know, the idea of learning either an opera and then from that, of course, the song repertoire. The idea of learning it and singing it from memory was very, very new.
I mean, that whole change in career. I mean, I had a similar thing when I was 23, 24. I spent all my teens just wanting to be in a cathedral organ loft and then conduct cathedral choirs. And then I sort of did it a bit at Winchester Cathedral. And by the time I got to about the age of 24, I thought, well, I've done all that now. What do I do now? And then I witnessed all this amazing music making going on when I came up to Central England for the first time. And I just thought, I just want to be part of that world. It seems like a nice way to live a life. And I think like you know, my wife was earning money, and we didn't have a very expensive lifestyle, and we got on with it and we look back. So how's your life changed over the last couple of months? I mean, obviously we're living in what is hopefully a temporary enforced sabbatical existence where, you know, obviously there's a lot of tragedy out there, but at the same time, we're both seeing extraordinary imagination and resilience and creativity and courage in our fellow artists. So what is your experience of this whole period?
I think my experience has been very blessed. We're just talking about this at Random Me yesterday, that all of the things that could work well to experience to survive lockdown. We have space. We've got a garden. We've got our family with us. Our extended family are well. I think anybody's experience of this whole last couple of months, if they personally or someone that they love is ill, is completely different. And also those people who are working incredibly hard, and not just in the emergency services, we know, looking after people, but people whose business suddenly is busy because what they're doing is required. We might come back to that, to whether music is required or not. But anyway, those people who are absolutely, no doubt about it, required, are so busy they can hardly look above the parapet. So, my recollection in a few years' time of this period is going to be this blissful kind of holiday sabbatical, as you describe it. And theirs will be very different. And so I'm aware of that. It sometimes, one can feel quite guilty sometimes talking about the freedom and the rest. But the truth of the matter is that before this came along, I was having to, as a self-employed musician, I was having to put such gaps into my own diary artificially. I got in the habit in the last couple of years of trying to take a whole month off in the summer, long enough after 4 weeks for me to stop processing music and song texts and all, in my mind, and also long enough for me not to have to do some groundwork to pick it back up again. It's a difficult thing, but the thing about doing it artificially is that while you do that, you're aware that all around the world and all around this country and all around us, other people are making great music, and there's a small voice saying, you should be doing that. You see that person doing that, Messiah? You should be singing that. And that's natural and human. So the thing about this particular period is that the pause button has been pressed for us all. So that I've been able to, I had to relax. I've had to stop and learn how to benefit from that. And I would also say a very important thing for me personally is I'm a point in my career, just that I've been doing it a long time, that to take a pause of this length and also not know when it's going to start up again is not the end of the world or the end of my career. But now all the young people that we're talking about, who've trained so hard and maybe have been singing for a year, maybe have been singing for a week. When the shutters came down in March, that was it. The whole story just completely blown to smithereens. And I feel most for people of that age, and I feel also for choristers who rely on singing together, and therefore obviously orchestral musicians whose immense training, the sort of training that makes what I do in my music room here seem really like sort of singing in the bath. But their immense training to play together suddenly has no outlet. And, I can produce the odd clip in isolation here. Someone might send me a piano part and I can sing to it and we put it together and it's great fun. But for an orchestral musician, you cannot play a Mahler symphony in isolation. All that training is about listening and interacting with people in the present.
But that being said, I think that this, for me, music and the arts have become hugely powerful throughout this period. And I think I'm finding it fascinating on two levels. One, how just music feels more powerful. We're speaking with John Russell yesterday about this very thing where there is something about the way we are emotionally engaging in this oral art form that is feeling far more connected with the various different emotions that we always associate with, but something's more sensitive about it. And then on the other side of things, how people are engaging with the arts. I think people are realizing how important music and singing. Everyone's turning to singing. Everyone's turning to the arts or theatre. That is their go-to. And I think through periods of darkness and tragedy or difficulty, that's where we're coming to. And I think in many ways this whole rebooting, rethinking, I'm confident it will return in time. It will look a little bit different in the short term, but I've seen and read enough that makes me feel as an arts leader, I suppose, not too worried about the long-term future and just willing to adapt in the short term. But I'm quite fascinated how musicians have made themselves relevant, have had the courage to reinvent themselves. And well, I'm a musician, I'm a singer. I don't necessarily have to sing to 1,000 people. I'm equally performing a purpose. So indeed, the one thing we're launching this week is this Alzheimer's program, where it's now so well documented, the benefits of singing both to and with the patient, of dementia patients, and their unlocking memories for them, and how scientists have now proved that just this whole process of singing and listening to music it unlocks parts of the brain which have lain dormant or have become unengaged for quite some time. And because of that, we've accelerated. We've been doing that for a few years now, but we've accelerated this part of it where they've spotted that Baroque music in particular also is a very effective way of doing this. So I'm hoping to try and persuade my musicians to engage with us in a way that they will, initially we'll record it separately, and then when things permit, Wigmore Hall next month, I know you're involved in this, you're going to be putting 2 people on a stage, and I've not seen a single negative comment about that. And once that's put in place, we shall do the same. We shall then put 2 people socially distanced in a recording room, then 3 as and when we're allowed and we feel it's safe and the musicians are happy to do so. And that'll be our purpose for a time being. We're doing all these workshops, we're doing these community choirs. The thing I'm desperately missing is this choral singing. I'm seeing the AC Academies one by one. The one-on-ones is so useful. We're achieving a huge amount, but we did a Zoom group rehearsal, and it wasn't really a rehearsal, but what it was keeping the tribe together, everyone seeing each other in that same room. And I didn't realize how powerful that was until I saw how everyone was reacting to each other. And that was phenomenally important. And so we're inventive. We will keep finding ways to do that. But I'm hopeful that by the autumn, we'll be making music with people again, but it'll be a little bit long before we're back on our heels on our career. But quietly, I should have done 7,000 miles this last 3 months, and I've done 380, and I'm really liking that.
Yeah.
So, and, the birds are happier, and I've done lots more cooking. I'm looking forward to a meal out again. So
that'll be wonderful. Particularly also in all the cycling, all the walking, running we've done, and we're passing all these pubs, and I'm making mental note. That looks a fantastic pub. Oh, that's a lovely looking pub. But we just can't stop there.
No. So not many people will know this, but you and I live actually very, very close to each other, and we share the same cycling routes, and we're actually to share the same route together. But am I right in thinking that we share the same cycling passions, that there's one particular route that you stop off at a pub, and then you phone up the restaurant at the next pub and say, what's on the menu today, please can I have? And by the time you get there, you get this Michelin star meal, and then off to the next one. So am I right in thinking that is a very healthy way of cycling, because you're burning all the calories?
Yeah, you'd certainly, because where we live is quite close to quite a nasty hill. So whatever you've drunk or eaten at one place, you will definitely burn off at another.
Totally.
I can also point out that we drink responsibly in those circumstances, because I don't want to end up with my face all over the tarmac. So yeah.
Totally, yes. That's absolutely with you on that. So my rucksack has been a haven for alcohol-free beer. I think this is why, just a year ago, there were a few tins of a few different types of alcohol-free beer. Now you go into Sainsbury's or Waitrose, there's whole swathes of the stuff. So, and this is no different for me. I enjoy this more now. So, but I do love a beer. So, anyway, let's change the subject slightly. Can you tell me about your most memorable concert? And maybe in the same answer, you could say, if you had a desert island disc, what would that be? Just one piece of music, and it could be a whole work.
A memorable concert. Concerts are memorable for all sorts of different reasons. I think one that is particularly memorable would be the last night of the proms, only because the tension beforehand and the relief afterwards. Memorable. I don't remember that much of being on stage. Not too much of being on stage, other than. As I say, the build-up beforehand was super intense, because I was in a dressing room underneath and made the mistake of putting on the television, the BBC One feed.
Oh yeah.
And seeing it all go to Glasgow and Cardiff and Belfast over, and then back to Hyde Park, and saying, right, there are actually quite a few people tuning in. Right, so don't go wrong then. Yeah. And I was also having tremendous trouble remembering the verses for Royal Britannia. What I was saying about memory is that's one of my bête noire is memory. And senior moments, little memory slips are just occur all the time. And I just didn't want to go down on YouTube as the guy who went flubba lubba 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 at the second verse of Royal Britannia. And so in the dressing room beforehand, I could not assemble my brain to get the words right. I had to take on the words in a black folder with me in my left hand, and that actually calmed me down. When I got on stage, I just had this folder here. If you go wrong there, you see, and I can see a memory slip coming up. I can think, what's the rhyme at the end of the next line? I can see it coming up, and there's nobody to turn to in that circumstance. But so if I'd just been able to sort of steep the thing open, have a quick look, I would have been fine. As it was, holding that script to my side meant that I didn't forget. And so having done 3 verses round without a memory slip, Zachary Orano said to the audience, "Shall we do that verse again?" He said, "Shall we have an encore?"
Which verse is it?
They were just the last one. I thought, right, I've got this. and by that point, I had realized that my mind had settled down and I was granted full word access. And I thought, right, I gotta muck about here. And knowing all the BBC singers were behind me with the BBC Symphony chorus, I then put in a top B flat, went to falsetto and put in a top B flat, which I just hoped would make them laugh. And it did. So there we are.
I'm very relieved you didn't crack on that note.
Yes, exactly.
Another YouTube moment.
It's a very special yodel.
And so what about the Desert Island Disc? If you could take one, it could be anything. For me, it would be Matthew Passion. What's yours?
I think mine would probably be Mahler's Second Symphony, the Resurrection Symphony. And it's really hard being put on spot, as you know, because it is mood dependent.
Yeah.
And often you are in the middle of, generally speaking, of working on something. So Matthew Passion, in your case, as you're working on it, and for me, sometimes the Matthew Passion, John Passion, as you're working on it, you're thinking, there is no better expression of human existence than what I'm doing right now.
Okay.
And then the next day, I'm doing Wintereise. I think, aha, there is no better expression of the human condition. But I think I would say the Mahler's Second Symphony, because all of life is in that symphony. The highest of highs and the lowest of lows, the most profound and the most profane. At any point you could just latch in.
Can I ask, what recording was it? The first recording you listened to that opened the gates to this world? I'm just wondering whether it's the same one that, for me.
Yeah, hold on there.
He's off. He's got fed up with the interview. He's disappeared, either for more beer or a recording. Which one's that one? Ooh, I've not heard. I've not actually heard that one. For me, it was the Simon Rattle that he did with the CBSO back in the late 80s, I think it was.
Oh, right. Right, rather than the more recent one just now. Yeah.
For me, I first of all heard the last movement, the great chorale, and that extraordinary crescendo at the end. I've never heard any Mahler before that. And I think I was only 15 or 16 at the time. And I couldn't believe there was music written like that. And like all of this, how do we come into music? You find, the hot number first, the one with the good tune, or the one with the rousing climax, like the opening of Zeta Priest, and then bit by bit you latch onto all the rest as you understand the rest. And that's a bit, as musicians, we have to constantly remember that young people don't change. People, when they're approaching music, they don't change. They still need these moments of access. In the same way that we had those moments of access, we didn't suddenly understand an entire Mali song.
Yes.
We grew from little fragments of it, and then we slowly, with help, understood. Now, moving on to the end of the interview, I'm very grateful of your time. Quick fire round. Okay, so here we go. There are no correct answers.
Very good. That's lucky.
Could be embarrassing ones. But So, first one: Oxford or Cambridge?
Oxford.
Okay, so I said there's no wrong answers. Yeah.
Florian Magdalena. Yes.
Bach or Schubert? I knew you'd find this hard.
Really hard.
Yeah.
I think I'd have to go for Bach in the end, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure you'd say that, but okay. This is slightly easier. Craft ale or Great British beer?
I think Great British Beer,
Yeah.
actually.
Okay. Yeah.
I have enjoyed the craft ale, but the beer is where my soul is at. Yeah.
Good, good. Very glad to hear it. This is slightly easier. Pub lunch or fine dining?
For pub lunch.
Absolutely. A
Thanks
long
for an
pub
easy
lunch
one.
or a quick one?
Yeah. Because of the informality of it. When someone says, would sir care for more asparagus souffle? No. Stick that where it's not something.
Bring another pork pie. Just keep them coming.
Definitely.
Okay, rugby or football?
Rugby.
Okay. Now you specifically requested no sport round. So
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah. But that's one I'd like to kind of respond to.
Now here's another one. I'm not sure I know what you're going to say here. Opera or song recital?
Song recital, I think.
Okay.
Because I get the best of both worlds then.
Yeah, okay.
In opera, I don't get so much for song recital, but in a song recital, Die Schöne Müllerin, that's an opera.
Okay, got absolutely totally with it. And the final one, Kyneton Chippy or Shooker's Curry House?
Oh, thank you for the easy ones. Obviously, Shooker's.
Absolutely. I've never had that. We share the same takeaway.
Yeah. Well, when I moved into the village, it was a lovely and very respectable restaurant. And then the lady moved, she went to New Zealand, I think. And I said to Miranda in passing, I said, you know what would be really great? You know, if they just opened an Indian restaurant just down on the corner from us. Yeah. And then boom, there it was.
And then our one in Wellesbourne burns down, and I now have to come all the way to your village to get my curry. So it's a worthy journey. So
yeah, worthy. Yeah.
Roderick Williams, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. And thank you for the time you've given to the AC Academy Scholars over the last few weeks, and for continuing that work with them. They are totally inspired with what you're bringing to them, and the journey musically and emotionally that they're taking over these changing, weird years is certainly well supported by you. So we're very grateful for that. And I raise a glass to you, my friend, as we will meet one day on Edge Hill, as we're having our third heart attack of the day. So, Roderick Williams, thank you.
Pleasure. Cheers.